Okay, so we are finally on to our last top 10. We've done our centers, power forward, small forward, shooting guard. Now it is time for the point guard. This one, it could be the hardest one yet in terms of the list. I mean, from about 10 to 7, there's going to be a range of different all-star caliber guys and breakout players who do get snubbed off this list. Between like 1 to 6, these guys, I mean, it's really just about the order, but in terms of about 10 to 7, unfortunately, a lot of guys are going to miss out. But Danko, firstly, how are we feeling about the list today? And overall, just how are you going today? Just about your day as well.
Yeah, I'm going well, man. This list is going to be hard, I'll be honest. I probably know that for a fact that one of us is going to pick somebody obscure and it's going to screw up the whole list. Well, not screw up the list because the list will still be good, but it's going to obviously make it difficult for the other guy to have to leave someone off. But, I mean, that's a part of these alternating ranking lists and, yeah, that's all part of the fun of it. So I'm looking forward to it. And, yeah, I'm keen to see who you've got in your or who you're going to pick and who I'm going to pick. And yeah, let's just get into it and have some fun with it. I'll toss the coin so we can decide who's going to pick first in this top 10 point guards ranking. And yeah, we'll go from there. Do you want heads or tails?
I'll take heads.
It is a tail. I will.
Who picks? Me.
I'll go 10th. I'll pick first. That's fine. Continue with the trend. Made me pick. I made you pick 10th last time, so it's all right. I'm happy to go 10 this time around. All right. So with my 10th overall pick, despite him having an injury-riddled season this past year, and there's other guys on that list in Drew Holiday, Darius Garland, Cade Cunningham, of the like that I could have had at this particular position, I'm going to pick LaMelo Ball. And although some people may say that he's an empty stats kind of guy, he doesn't equate to winning basketball games. I disagree with that. I think you saw in his second year, he was an all-star. Last season in 36 games, obviously it was an injury-interrupted season, averaged 23.3 points, 6.4 rebounds, 8.4 assists, 1.3 steals. Again, the box score doesn't tell the whole thing, and there are a lot of empty stats guys in this league. But I feel like with LaMelo Ball being 6'7", leading that team, and that team obviously having its own problems with Miles Bridges and Clyde Jones and James Bouknight. There's a lot of guys on that roster who have troubles off the court, so that can be a bit of a distraction. But the fact is, something that can't be denied is that LaMelo Ball is one of the premier playmakers in this league. He's one of the premier shot makers in this league. And I think with a clear and uninterrupted season, if he can play at least 65, 70 games this year, I see him having another all-star caliber season or getting back to that all-star caliber season. I can see his points per game dropping. I could see him having a similar sort of stat line to a Trae Young, averaging 25, 26 and 10 per game, and 10 assists, that is. If he can continue to be consistent on that defensive side of the ball, which we've seen in the early stages of his career, and if he can be a similar kind of defender to his brother or have that similar kind of ascension, there's no reason why he can't be one of the premier point guards in this league. But conservatively, I've selected him at 10 because, again, there are concerns about his durability and, whether he can correlate to winning games of basketball. But we can't deny the talent LaMelo Ball has and how great of a point guard he is. So for that reason, I'll have to slot him in here at 10.
Yeah, 100%. Can't disagree with you on that pick. I feel like 10's a safe spot. I mean, in terms of the talent that he is, you could argue he's even higher, but basing it off the fact that last year, like you mentioned, the durability issues, he only played around 30-something games last year. So, I mean, it does make sense. And, yeah, for the next pick, I got pick number 9, and I really, really, really want to put Cade Cunningham on this list because I genuinely do think he'll arise and be in the ascension of a top 10 point guard in this league, and I do think the Pistons might be a bit better than we expect them to be. But unfortunately, I'm actually going to have to leave him off this list, and I have to play it safe and pick none other than Jamal Murray. The guy's 26 years of age. He enters the prime of his career, coming off a great FIBA tournament and coming off an NBA champion and a great, playoff journey last year. In the playoffs, he played terrific, and I feel like this could be the first time that in a couple of years he's played 70-odd games and he puts together a great body of work and he averages around 23, 24 points per game, 6 assists, and he really pushes to the prime years of his career or prime season of his career. And maybe we see like an All-NBA third or second version of Jamal Murray. So he will be my number 9 pick.
Can't argue with that. I think personally I would have had him at around 6, but again, the arguments can be made from anywhere from 6 to 9 based off the fact that he just had his first full season back since that ACL. But can't deny the greatness of him in playoff situations. 20 postseason games last year, averaged 26.1 points, 7.1 assists, made big shots in big moments, came up big when Jokic, maybe had a bit of a down period in those games. If he can have a breakout year next year, which we're predicting him to have, and continue performing in the postseason, he could arguably be higher on this list. But 9, I think, is a good spot or good selection by you there. For me, the next pick number 8, I'm gonna go with. Oh, as much as I don't want to pick him, I kind of have to because he was my 9th pick on this list. But I'm going to go with Trae Young at number 8. And although, we could say Jamal Murray has proven to be a better player in crucial moments, we saw also what Trae Young can do in a playoff situation. He took his team to the Eastern Conference Finals a few seasons ago. The season before last, he had averaged 28 points per game. This past season had a bit of a down year, but considering he did have a down year, he still averaged a double-double, had averaged 26 and 10. With Quinn Snyder's appointment, I think he can definitely be or improve defensively, and I think Quinn Snyder's going to put that on him to, be a better defender. But if they can work out a scheme as a team, defensively to help maybe cover up those weaknesses that Trae Young does possess on that side of the ball, then, he can have that free-flowing offensive game that we've seen from him. I think the one question mark or one area of improvement for him would be obviously shot selection, which is why I reckon he shoots very low percentages from the field and from 3 compared to some of the other point guards on this list. But I think, they are very deep threes. So it's not like he's just missing, short range threes. They are from the logo. So he does take these really outlandish threes, but I think there's no denying the talent that Trae Young possesses. I think he's one of the best playmakers in this entire league. And it would be a travesty to leave him off this top 10. So for that reason, I had to put him at 8. I think he's going to have a bit of a bounce back year. And hopefully with DeJounte, they can work that out. And with the new defensive schemes that Quinn Snyder instills and the new assistant coaches he's brought into the fold, I think they have a bit more of a bounce back year and maybe get a guaranteed playoff spot this coming season, if all goes well.
No, I love the pick. I feel like a guy like Trae Young, the very worst we saw from him last year, still a 26 and 10 guy. Still, obviously, there's always that locker room incident, with Nate McMillan at the time and then John Collins as well. But at the end of the day, I feel like this Hawks, the direction that they're going in is really young, really exciting, something that I could see Trae Young really enjoying being a part of with a guy like Jalen Johnson, AJ Griffin, even DeAndre Hunter. There's a lot of excitement there in Atlanta, and I know it might seem like doomy days, but at the end of the day, I feel like they might have a lot of fun and surprise some people, make the playoffs, and maybe even the pairing of DeJounte Trae comes to an end and they pick the route of a guy like Trae Young and he proves his worth. I really hope he does because he's probably the most disrespected NBA star in the entire league. From not only like general managers but players alike, and we saw that in those votes that came out last year, the crazy amount of disrespect there. But certainly a top 10 point guard in the league. For my 7th pick, I want to put this guy higher, but at the end of the day, we've seen him do this over one season, I guess one year body of work. That is, I keep saying that, but Jalen Brunson. He took the Knicks to the playoffs last year with Julius Randle, 24-6 and basically 4. I feel like this guy, he's one of the few point guards in the league who can shoot upwards to 50% or higher from the field. It's crazy how he kind of maneuvers his way in the paint, gets to his spot so effortlessly at such a small frame and such a small height. He's only like 6'1", I think. So Brunson, he certainly deserves to be in this list, but I don't know if he'll necessarily duplicate what he did last season. He averaged 24 a game last season, which it's crazy, but I hope he does. I really like him as a player. I think he gets after it defensively, and obviously his offensive game, he's a weapon. So that being said, yeah, he'll be the 7th pick, but I do also, in the back of my head, look at a guy like Cade Cunningham, and I really do think that he well and truly could be in this position come at the end of this season, especially if the Pistons are, succeeding and they are winning more games than expected, and he's averaging upwards to 27 and 8. I really do think Cade could, but I'm gonna have to play it safe and go with the safer route and pick Jalen Brunson at 7.
Yeah, I can understand the Cade shout there for sure, especially because, we saw what he did in his rookie season. We saw, obviously, in the limited time that he did play on the court last year, how effective he could be. So I don't absolutely hate that shout that's saying that Cade could be a top 10 point guard or slot him in at that 7 slot. But I think, yeah, Jalen Brunson, based off what he did last year, was nearly an All-NBA player, was borderline All-Star. Either one of those two he could have snuck into. But nonetheless, I think you're right. It's one of those ones, once he's had one good year like this, can teams maybe game plan better for him? Is he going to be able to have, a counter punch for when teams do put time and effort into him? Not saying that they didn't do that last year once he was sort of started to shine a little bit more than, people expected him to. But being that he is the number one guy, being that obviously there's going to be a lot of attention to him, how can he take that added pressure and attention that's going to be put on him and allow him to, follow up this breakout season that he had with another improvement? So I don't know if it's going to be possible. I think Jalen Brunson, he's a really smart player. He's got a high basketball IQ, barely turns the ball over, a good playmaker, great shot maker from all three levels. So I think it's still justified having him in this list, but I can understand why some people would have him arguably lower going into next season based off the fact that he might have a bit of a plateau. But all in all, I think it's a fair selection there, and I had him at 8 on my list, so 7's a reasonable shout. So going on to my 6th pick, which is not going to be as controversial, it's De'Aaron Fox. I think we obviously saw what De'Aaron Fox did, had a incredible year helping the Kings end that 17-year playoff drought that they had, which was the longest in American sports history at the time. There was question marks about whether they, kept the right player in terms of that trade when Domantas Sabonis ended up at the Sacramento Kings, sorry. I had a bit of a blank there. But yeah, there was a bit of question mark about whether they kept the right player, but ultimately I think, it was vindicated. They had a great year. Him and Sabonis worked out quite well as a tandem. Tyrese had a breakout year in his own right, and I think we saw what De'Aaron Fox could do. He made clutch shot after clutch shot, not only in the regular season, but in that playoff series against the Golden State Warriors. They were probably a little bit unlucky not to win that series. There was a couple of moments in those games where it didn't go their way, but all in all, I think, what he did last year, and, where I project him to be next season, I think he'll definitely have another breakout sort of a year and continue that ascension towards being one of the best point guards in the league. But not really much to say. I think it's sort of a fair justification here. I don't think you can have him lower based off the season he had last year, but I don't know if you can put him any higher based off the guys that are going to be above him on this list. But it wasn't the best justification, but all in all, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Fox, obviously, they were the 4th seed, and then he did almost take them to that position. I think, like you said, he's more than deserving. Clutchest play in the league. I think that's a fair spot for him, and I don't think it's like you literally couldn't have said it any better. It's either between Ja Morant and Tyrese Halliburton, and I look at the fact that Ja will be suspended for the first 25 games, but I don't necessarily know if Tyrese is a better player, but I think it's very close. But it's just like we're basing it off who's going to have a better season. So I'm going to have to pick, Ja Morant in this instance at 5, just because he misses all that time. Tyrese is going to be playing probably almost every game. He'll probably play 70 plus unless something magically he gets injured, which will suck. But a guy like Ja, who's out for the first 25 games, we know he's an MVP candidate when he is playing, but you miss like a quarter of the season, it's going to be really hard to be a top 5 point guard in season 2023-24. But overall, do I really need to justify why he's top 5? 26, 6 and 8. highlight worthy dude. Obviously, takes the Grizzlies to the playoffs, and he can take him far in the playoffs. He's proven that before. So the Jar, words can't even describe how good he is. All he needs to do is put his head in the game a little bit and not get into too much trouble. And I feel like he's easily a top 3 to top 4 point guard in this league. It's just he kind of has to clean up his off the court acts, but he will be the 5th best point guard in season 2023-24.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a line ball one here with Tyrese and Ja, like you said. I think what pushes Tyrese over the line for me is just his efficiency in terms of, nearly a 50, 40, 90 player, averaging 20 and 10 a game. So, and you saw with Ja, his jump shot from outside took a hit. It was only a 30.7% last season. But again, no denying that he's one of the most explosive point guards. Defensively, he can hold his own still. Still an area for him to improve, but I think, he can get a lot of those chase down blocks. He's a pest in the passing lanes when he wants to be. But yeah, like you said, he has to just clean up that off-court act because that's the only thing that's stopping him. The only thing that's stopping him from being the best player in the world, or arguably one of the best players in the entire league, is just, him committing himself 100% to basketball and letting all those other distractions or pushing all those other distractions aside. I'll move on to number 4, which we obviously know that I've just said it then, is going to be Tyrese Halliburton. And I think this guy, every year since he's come into the league, has improved. Every year since he's come into the league, he's shot 40% from 3. And, in a league that's so 3-point dominated with a lot of pick and rolls, he's a master at that. Averaged 20 and 10 with nearly 2 steals a game last year. Led that Indiana Pacers team before he did get injured, and he was obviously up there as one of the best point guards in the entire association, despite the fact that a lot of people questioned that whole jump shot of his when he first came into the league and whether it would be effective, and they were just comparing him to Lonzo Ball. I reckon he's well and truly surpassed that, hence why they gave him that max extension, which could be worth up to $260 million over 5 years. And then having a guy like Obi Toppin in the mix this year, adding Bruce Brown in, a healthy Miles Turner with no trade rumors, that's going to be a dynamic pick and roll tandem. I think he's going to get a lot more guys open looks. That 10.4 assists realistically could turn into 11, 12 assists a night. And that's not gassing him up, but that's just how good of a passer I believe Tyrese is. And he's a very much more of a pass-first oriented guy, which the fact that he then averages 21 points per game last year is a testament to how good his offense can be. And when he needs to score the ball, he can do it. 43 and 17 against the Heat, 40 points against the Sixers. None of these teams are scrubs by any stretch of the imagination. So for that reason, I'll have him in at 4. I couldn't have him in any higher than those other guys that are above him in the next 3 picks. But yeah, definitely has that ability and potential to get into MVP talks. I know that's a wild take, but if he can, increase his points per game by 2 or 3, average those 11, 12 assists, 2 steals, if he stays on the court and plays 65, 70 games and the Pacers end up being a 4th seed in the East or a 5th seed and everything goes well, there's no reason why he shouldn't be in MVP conversations. So yeah, as you couldn't already tell, I'm a big Hallie fan, so I could talk about Tyrese Halliburton for half an hour if I wanted to, but for the purposes of this, I'm going to cut it short there and let you select the 3rd pick.
Yeah, nah, spot on. I feel like with Hallie there, very quickly, historical numbers, similar to a young Chris Paul, can't go wrong with that pick. But for the 3rd pick, I really want to put this guy in my top 2, but in terms of circumstances, being on a new team, I'm going to have to put Damian Lillard at number 3. I know he's coming off a career year. He averaged like 33, 8, basically shot 50, 40, 90, which is crazy with the amount of shot attempts he takes per game, doing it that efficiently and, being that guy on that Portland team a year prior. He gets all the attention defensively. It's actually insane. But, yeah, I have to put him at 3 just because circumstance, like I said, he's never played with a guy like Giannis before. Maybe it takes attention away from him and he gets better off the ball looks, spotting up for threes and things of that nature. But it's also like new situation. He's never been a part of another franchise before. Maybe it will take him some time to adapt to a new system, a new coach. But I still think coming off a career year, he will be a top 3 point guard in this league. I don't think he's top two, but I mean, a way you could maybe Tyrese takes the ascension and he even rises over a guy like Dame. As Dame, at the end of the day, they are like championship contenders or front runners, you could say, the Bucks, but he is 33 years of age, and I know he's coming off a career year, but things may change. I mean, passing the torch happens a lot in the NBA. I don't want to see it happen necessarily because I love Dame, but yeah, I feel like this pick, it's justified that Dame is pick three. But at the end of season, when it's all said and done, any of these guys could jump over a guy like Dame in just a click of a finger. So wait to see what happens. But for now, Damian Lillard will be the third best point guard in the league at 3.
Yeah, I think that's more than a fair justification. I had him at 3 as well. Yeah, I think Dame's an underrated playmaker. 7.3 assists per game last year, and that was while still scoring 32.2 points per game. So I feel like, if one of them's getting double teamed, he's a good enough passer to be able to find the open guy, and he's really good in pick and roll. So I think, like you said, number 3 is a really, really safe bet, and depending on how it goes this year, could either jump him up or make him a bit lower on this list. But I think nonetheless, this is an exciting team that they have going forward, and an exciting duo that's going to cause a lot of problems in the league. So with my second pick, though, as much as this guy has obviously proven himself to be arguably the greatest point guard of all time. Obviously, there was those debates about him and Magic Johnson. I'm going to go with Steph Curry. I could have gone Luka in this situation, but I felt like based off Luka's body of work in his first 4 or 5 seasons, he's only going to continue to get better, which is crazy to say. So for that reason, I'm putting Steph Curry in. I think, yes, Steph did come off a year where he averaged 29.4 points, 6 boards, 6.3 assists, basically nearly shot 50, 40, 90. He wasn't healthy. Last year, he only played in 56 games. I obviously expect him to be available for a lot more games this season, but he was a second-team All-NBA player. Luka was a first-team All-NBA player. So, but we know what to expect from Steph, and I feel like on any given night, he is the best point guard in the world. He's arguably could be the best player in the world when he is on fire and when he's on his the peak of his powers. So yeah, it's kind of a line ball one here, but I kind of feel like I don't really need to justify with Steph kind of why he's in the top 2. This is like a toss of the coin kind of thing. So yeah, I think that for that reason, him not being healthy, he's getting a little bit older, which isn't going to stop him. But again, that's partly the reason why I had him at number 2 and not number 1, because I expect Luka to have a breakout and probably win MVP next year. I think Luka is definitely well on his way, and I'll make my justification once you obviously select him at 1, and then I'll tell you a little bit more why I believe he is the number 1 player in the world, or at the point guard spot, that is.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, obviously, pick number 1 leaves me with no other choice but to select Luka Doncic. And to be fair, this is who I did have at number 1 to begin with anyway. Reason being, last year, obviously, the Mavericks, they missed the playoffs. They had a horrible end to season 2022-23. Obviously, they got Kyrie, and although they both played tremendously well, I don't think they had the depth chart to necessarily compete, even if they made the playoffs for a championship team. Now, this might sound controversial to some. Personally, I think this Mavericks team, they've played really bad in the preseason, but I think they now have the potential to compete for a championship. That is just my opinion. Maybe they lack a backup point guard with Luka. Jane Hardy, great player. To me, he's like a scoring guard. But besides that, I mean, they brought in Grant Williams. They brought in rookie Omax. They brought in Derek Lively. Obviously, Josh Green, he'll probably ascend into an even better player. They brought back Seth Curry, who knows, he could even play backup point guard. Dante Exum from the EuroLeague. I think he'll honestly enter the prime of his career. I think he's improved ever since he went overseas, but nevertheless, let me justify why Luka, I think, is the best point guard in the league. Firstly, 24 years of age. Last season, he averaged practically 33 points per game, about 9 rebounds, 8 assists. That should honestly say enough. Around 50% from the field, absolutely insane. not only do I expect the Mavericks to be like a top 5 seed, I expect Luka, like you mentioned before, to even take another step up. And it sounds crazy because he averaged like 33 points per game. But yeah, he's probably also, he might be my MVP too, just because of how good he is. Such a young age. He'll be 25 this season, but it's just crazy how good he is. And I hope the Mavericks can shock the NBA world, I guess, and compete for a potential top 5 seed. And Luka is well on his way to greatness, because who doesn't love Luka? I know he complains to the ref a little bit too much, but you got to love him. So, number 1 pick, Luka Doncic. Fair is fair.
You know what was crazy to me last year? He averaged 33, pretty much 9 and 8, like you said, and was really efficient. Obviously, nearly 50% from the field. It was pretty much 50% from the field. And people still reckon he had a down year, or he didn't have as great of a year. I'm like, and I'm looking at that. I know you can't.
What more can he
I'm
do?
literally. I know you can't just look primarily at the box score. You got to look at the eye test. You got to look at how things are playing out when Kyrie got traded. But realistically speaking, that loss of Jalen Brunson was massive, and we didn't really realize it until we saw the season that Jalen Brunson had. So for me personally, that's a big loss. Then they lost all their defense in that trade when they gave up Dorian Finney-Smith, and they obviously ended up getting Kyrie Irving. That he was one of their defensive anchors. He definitely held that defensive scheme together. Jason Kidd made some questionable calls last year as well with his rotations. So a lot of it wasn't to be put onto Luka as such, but I think Luka just automatically gets the blame because he's a star player, and they're like, oh, he doesn't work hard on defense, oh, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But like, literally, those numbers are historic. His first 5 seasons in the league, he's been an All-NBA player in the first team All-NBA, that is, 4 times. Some guys who've been in the league for 20 years, haven't even cracked an All-NBA team, let alone an All-NBA first team. And then he was an All-Star for the 4th time. Historical sort of ascension that we've seen Luka go on, and he's finally put time and effort into his off season. He looks a bit more spry with the way he moves, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, don't think there's much more that can be said. I think every year we hear like MVP favorite, and then somehow he, for whatever reason, he falls out of that contention by the middle part of the year. But I think this is the year where he maintains that consistency. He plays, a full season. He stays healthy. Him and Kyrie have a really good partnership, and that tandem becomes really lethal. You take Luka off that team literally is competing for a lottery pick. I don't care what people say. They're literally competing for like a top 10, top 5 pick.
No. They're the worst team in the league. Yeah,
legitimately. I honestly think Luka just covers those weaknesses from those other players so well because he puts up historic numbers night in, night out, like 60, 21, and 10. Like, that shit just doesn't get done by other players. Like, that's just freakish numbers. But yeah, I think with that being said, we know where we stand. But we'll sum up the top 10 list for the point guards. I'll start it off from 10 to 6, and you can go from 5 to 1. So number 10, we got LaMelo Ball. I keep looking at my list and I get confused. Number 10, LaMelo Ball. Number 9, Jamal Murray. Number 8, Trae Young. Number 7, Jalen Brunson. Number 6, De'Aaron Fox. And then I'll let you round out the top 5.
Top 5 was Ja Morant at 5. At 4, it was none other than Mr. Halliburton. Number 3, it was Damian Lillard. Number 2, it was none other than Stephen Curry. And then at number 1, none other than the GOAT himself, the Wonder Boy, Luka Doncic.
Luka Magic, yes, sir. But I'm happy with the list. I think there's some snubs. Obviously, people are going to look at it and it's like, how did you leave Darius Garland off that list? How did you leave, Drew Holiday off that list? Yeah. Have you got any other names that you can think of there that, we may have snubbed?
I don't think Cade was snubbed, but people could go on that route. And then besides that, though, I feel like those are the real main 3. Cade.
Darius.
Cade. No, sorry. I don't think Cade got snubbed, actually. It's mainly Darius and it's mainly Drew Holiday.
Yeah. Make sure to hit subscribe, guys, because we're nearly at 1,000 subs. We've got a jersey giveaway to complete once we do hit 1,000 subs, and obviously we're going to continue to grow this channel. It doesn't stop once we hit 1,000, but your support would be greatly appreciated, and we won't continue to make these videos without you guys interacting and giving us that support. But without further ado, that's all we have time for in today's video, and we'll catch you next time, guys. See you later.
Hello, yes, you at home. This is Commissioner of the NBA speaking to you, Adam Silver. Here's a message in courtesy of Benchmob in collaboration with the NBA Store. When Benchmob hits 1,000 subscribers, they'll be giving away a free NBA jersey to a lucky subscriber. So just do all the things listed on the screen. God damn.